September 1984, the Dalles, Oregon, a quiet community on the Columbia River where not much happens aside from the occasional bake sale or local election, until 1 week, 700 people began violently vomiting after they ate their lunch. Hospitals overflowed, health officials began to panic, and somewhere in a fortified desert commune 20 miles away, red-robed cultists were taking note. This wasn't a bad batch of ranch dressing or a classic case of poopy fingies. No. This was the first and only bioterrorist attack by a cult in the history of the United States. And these cultists, they weren't jihadis. Nobody thought they were the second coming of Christ. There was no Kool-Aid, which was technically Flavor Aid. Jim Jones didn't even spot the extra 20 cents per packet on Kool-Aid, name brand Kool-Aid. He bought Flavor Aid. Fun factoid of the day. Fun factoid. And nobody thought you had to wear matching Nikes in order to be taken up in the spaceship that was hiding behind Halley's Comet. No! These cultists were much, much worse. They were filthy hippies. I'm King Trout, and I put on cologne before I record these videos, despite the fact that I'm well aware you can't smell me. It all started with one man in India wearing a robe saying, and despite how much I really want to do the voice, I'm not going to do the voice. One man in India wearing a robe saying, buy more things, have more sex, be free. That man's name was Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, and in the 1970s, he set up shop in Pune, India. I am almost positive I have pronounced at the very least one, if not all of those words wrong. You guys know how I am with pronouncing words, especially when they're not English. Diana had been chased all summer long, from Saint-Tropez to London, now to Paris. Saint-Tropez.
Saint-Tropez.
Either way, he blended a unique combination of Eastern mysticism with Western consumerism. It was spirituality for the spiritually exhausted. That's a lot of air quotes. No guilt, no gods. Screaming, dancing, weeping. It was part yoga, part rave, and part pyramid scheme. His followers, called sannyasins, came from all around the globe. The US, Germany, Australia, and beyond. Teachers, engineers, doctors. These people weren't necessarily idiots. They were just looking for something different. But as with all good things, and cults, they eventually ran into some government red tape. Rajneesh hit a wall in India with tax laws, immigration issues, and public protest, so he and his followers looked west. They landed on Wasco County, Oregon. Rural, underpopulated, and legally pliable. It seemed perfect. They bought the Big Muddy Ranch, 64,000 acres of high desert, and they renamed it Rajneeshpuram. And they got to work. They built roads, homes, dams, a fire department, a police station, a bank, and even an airstrip. Within 2 years, they had a functioning city-state, all clad in maroon. And at the heart of it all, silent and motionless, was the guru. Yes, silent. He had taken a vow of silence and refused to speak for years, so somebody had to speak for him. Enter Ma Anand Sheela. She was young, fiery, and terrifyingly competent. She was Rajneesh's personal secretary, spiritual daughter, and unofficially she was the dictator of Rajneeshpuram. Sheela wasn't playing little guru games. No. She was playing chess. She coordinated logistics, construction, legal battles, and public messaging for the cult. And when the locals pushed back, she didn't try to calm them down. She taunted them. She went on TV and called public officials pigs, bigots, and middle-class nobodies. Sounds like she's describing me, except she said middle class instead of lower middle class. I actually don't know where the cutoff is financially. It might just be lower class. But I digress. Sheela wasn't running a commune. She was running PSYOPs with a press badge. Rajneeshpuram's nearest neighbor was a microscopic town called Antelope. Population, like 60-ish. Mood, suspicious. The Rajneeshees began to move in. They were buying homes, opening businesses, and registering to vote. Then, they won control of the city council. Having done so, they renamed the town of Antelope to Rajneesh. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer in the Rajneesh play. So fucking stupid. This was right about the time the state of Oregon noticed something kind of odd was going on. But by the time lawyers started drafting up zoning laws, the Rajneeshees were already swearing in their own cops. What was daily life like within Rajneeshpuram? Well, it depended on your rank. If you were in Sheila's inner circle, it was a life of relative luxury. Access to the guru, clean clothes, and air conditioning. If you were a worker, farming, building, or driving buses, you lived in cramped tents or dorms. If you were a woman, you were encouraged to participate in free love sessions, sometimes with the guru himself. Because what kind of a cult would it be if the guy in charge wasn't fucking everybody? And if you were a critic, you were isolated, surveilled, and sometimes even poisoned. It was a utopia for like 12 people. For everyone else, it was a mix of hard labor, cult psychology, and emotional exhaustion. And no one was allowed to ask, why does Bhagwan need like a dozen Rolls Royces and Rolexes? The Rajneeshees weren't just spiritual warriors, they were also legal ninjas. They filed hundreds of lawsuits. They exploited tax loopholes, land use laws, and religious protections to build a fortress disguised as a church. They even tried to start their own county. And when that didn't work out, Sheela took it a step farther. From the courthouse to the petri dish. Sheila's plan was gut-churningly brilliant. That pun will make sense once you understand what her plan was. They were going to stop the people of Wasco County from voting against them. It was a simple two-step process. Step 1, infect the population with salmonella. And step 2, outvote that population who's too busy shitting their pants and puking their guts up to vote. To do this, they built a secret laboratory and brought in a licensed microbiologist who was a devout follower of the cult. They cultured pathogens and tested them internally. Once they found them to be successful, they went into town. They attacked 10 restaurants in the town of The Dalles, Oregon. They contaminated salad bars, utensils, and bathroom handles. The result? 751 sick, 45 hospitalized. Thankfully, 0 deaths, but a town terrified, and no arrests were made. Until much later, and we'll get to that, but at the time, no arrests were made. Sheela was becoming a teensy bit paranoid. She had the cultists stockpile weapons and even had them build a gas chamber, which they tested out on members of the cult who got a little too lippy. But that wasn't their only crime. Sheela and her team began bugging every phone on the compound, poisoning fellow members with haloperidol, drugging homeless who they had bussed in as voters. No comment on that one. They plotted multiple assassinations, including the U.S. Attorney for Oregon. They also drafted blueprints for gas attacks, explored using botulinum toxin, and practiced using aerosol dispersal systems. Hell of a free love hippie cult, huh? God, I fucking hate hippies. Eventually, Bhagwan turned on Sheela. Maybe it was fear, maybe he thought the walls were closing in, or maybe he didn't want to share credit for the terrorist organization that they had incidentally created. I don't know, it could have been any of those things. He held a press conference, he broke his silence, and he essentially went,
I didn't do fucking shit!
She fled to West Germany. Shortly after, Bhagwan was arrested for immigration fraud. The FBI raided the ranch and found everything. Tapes, lab cultures, weapons. Sheela was captured in West Germany, extradited, tried, and sentenced to 20 years in prison, of which, thankfully, she served 39 whole months. And Bhagwan, well, he was deported to India. He changed his name to Osho, and 5 years later, he was dead. And afterwards, he became an icon. Today, the ranch is a Christian youth camp. The commune is gone, the airstrip abandoned, and the salad bars are restocked. But the Osho brand lives on. His books are in bookstores, his quotes go viral on Instagram, and some of his teachings are embedded in corporate wellness retreats. Oprah has recommended his books before. I'm not fucking joking. The same guy whose cult gassed people, poisoned an entire town, and attempted to take over an entire county is now a self-help influencer. I mean, a dead one, but the point still stands. And Sheela? Well, she currently runs 2 nursing homes in Switzerland. I have absolutely no idea what you'll do with that information, but I found it interesting that a convicted bioterrorist runs a couple of nursing homes in Switzerland. So I guess if you're watching this in Switzerland, thinking about putting Pop Pop in a home, maybe look into that. and find one that isn't run by a convicted bioterrorist. But you do what you like. We remember Jonestown, we remember Heaven's Gate, but we forget Rajneeshpuram. Why? Perhaps because Rajneeshpuram is a dumbass name, or perhaps it's a different reason. Perhaps it's because they don't fit the standard narrative. They were calm, they were smiling, they said namaste before committing acts of domestic terrorism. And the scariest part? They almost got away with it. They got really close to achieving their goals. Maybe if there was a different judge, or a missed press conference, or a wave of public sympathy for these peaceful people, they would have made it to the state level. A religious movement with a bioweapons program, operating what appeared to be within the law, and nobody stopped them until it was almost too late. The Rajneeshees proved you can weaponize love, you can buy silence, and you can sell salvation. All at wholesale prices. Their story isn't just about a cult. It's about what happens when faith meets infrastructure, when charisma gets a budget, and when the only thing stopping authoritarianism is a health inspector. The next time someone offers you spiritual clarity, tax-free status, and a salad, just be sure to ask them what's in the dressing. I've been King Trout. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you when I see ya. Love you. Bye.
Hey, babe.
Oh my god, what the fuck do you want?
Can you stop peeing in Gatorade bottles and putting them underneath the bed?
It could have been literally anybody.
I'm filing for divorce.
That's what you sound like. God, what the fuck is her problem?